Good morning, everybody. We got to the middle of the week. It's Wednesday morning, and appreciate you joining us for Coffee with Doc. We're looking at Joshua and how Joshua faced Jericho and kind of applying it to the Jerichos that we face in our life, those impossible situations that come up to us. And sometimes, as we said, they're of our own making. Bad decisions or whatever they happen to be, or disobedience. Sometimes they just assail us. They're just there. And as Joshua walked down on the plains of Jericho, he looked out and saw the city of Jericho and the impossibility of defeating it. We said that he learned 5 important words that we're looking at this week. The first one was strength. He learned that the strength was not his own when Jesus held a sword and said, "I'm commanding this operation." That's the strength, the Lord Jesus. And then the second thing we looked at was the strategy, that you have to listen to God, you have to plan according to His Word, and you have to prepare and be obedient even if you don't understand why He's telling you to do certain things. Now, the third word, we've talked about strength, we've talked about strategy. And this morning, on Wednesday morning, halfway through, I want to talk about submission, because that's another lesson, a vital lesson that Joshua learned at Gilgal, walking out on the plains of Jericho. As he looked at the city, uh, he knew that everything was riding on him. He knew that the people were looking to him for leadership, but he didn't know what to do. And sometimes that happens when you're in a position of leadership. People are looking for you and you don't know what to do. And I can tell you what to do. You've got to get alone with God. And that's where Joshua was. He was alone with God and discovering God's strength. He was alone with God and discovering God's strategy. But there was one thing that he had to do. Once he knew that he wasn't strong enough, and once he knew that God was giving him kind of a weird strategy, he had to learn submission. Now, that's what we're going to talk about this morning, submission. Because sometimes that's the very thing that we need, and especially that I need, is learning to submit to the Lord. You say, well, Dick, how do you know Joshua submitted? Well, obviously, because he did what God said. But let's go back just a little bit when Joshua learned who he was dealing with. And the man who drew the sword said, "I came as the captain of the Lord's host." And then the first thing that Joshua said is, "What do you want me to do? What message do you have for your servant?" He thought maybe it was just another appearance of an angelic messenger, and he knew it was important. It was from heaven, but he said, "All right, give me your message. What do you want?" And that's when he found out he was in the presence of the Lord, because the Lord said, "Take off your sandals. The place you're standing is holy ground." And immediately Joshua fell down on his face. And it says he worshiped him there. Joshua did so. Now, what that is a picture of submission. The first thing Joshua did was he bowed in adoration. He bowed in worship. He fell at his feet in holy ground in the presence of God. And folks, that's the first act of submission, is to bow before the Lord, to realize He is here, to realize we are doing business with holy God, to realize that we don't have any strength of our own, to realize we can't come up with a strategy on our own. And the first thing we have to do is bow in worship. So that's the first thing that he did. Now, the second thing that he did in submission is he not only bowed in worship, but he believed the word. You see, he could have called into question almost everything. Why the priest? Why the trumpets? Why walk around the city once every day? Why 7 days on the seventh day? Why just shout? while man tries to figure out the geological or the structural reasons for any of that, maybe walking around there is going to loosen the foundations, the pounding of the feet, and the vibrations of the horn. Listen, stop doing that. Just believe the word. Joshua had to just believe what God said. So part of his submission was worship, bowing in worship. And then the second part of his submission was believing what God said, believing the word. Folks, if you're going to get through and over and around your Jerichos, you're going to have to bow and worship before him. And you're going to have to believe his word, just like Joshua did. You're going to have to believe his word. Even when you don't understand it, you still believe his word. And the third thing that he did that shows us submission is that Joshua acted in obedience. Even without understanding, he acted in obedience. Nowhere here in this chapter do you see Joshua saying, "But why, God? Why are we doing this?" He just did it. Have you found yourself reading something in the Word and it just kind of ticked you off and you want to say, "Why do you want me to do that? Why should I do that? Who do you think you are, God?" Yes, he is. And therefore, what he says, we need to listen to, and we need to believe, and we need to act on. That is submission. So find your strength in him. He's got the sword. He's the commander of the army. Find your strategy. Listen to him. See what his word says. And then be in submission to him. We'll pick up here tomorrow. And we're going with the last two words that Joshua learned something about here in this chapter. Chapter 5, chapter 6. We'll see you in the morning. God bless you. Have a good midweek.